You wake up before the sun has fully risen, the dim light filtering through a paper lantern, soft shadows shifting across the carved wooden panels of the small room you inhabit in the bustling district near the Huangpu River. The air is thick with humidity, mingled with distant smells of soy sauce, boiling tea, and the faint, ever-present scent of opium from the parlor below. You lie still for a few moments, tracing the rhythm of life outside the shuffle of footsteps along the narrow alley, the clatter of carts delivering rice and vegetables, and the occasional cough of a laborer in the cold morning mist. Your room is sparse. A narrow bed lined with silken sheets, a small wooden chest that holds your few personal belongings, a mirror fashioned from polished bronze. In the corner, a folded robe, the intricate embroidery depicting dragons and chrysanthemums, awaits the ritual of dressing. These mornings are quiet, almost meditative, but you know that the serenity will not last. The city is alive with commerce, politics, and the undercurrents of a society that depends on strict hierarchies and subtle manipulations. Your first task is always cleanliness. Bathing is not a casual affair, it is a disciplined ritual. Water is scarce and must be heated carefully on a small charcoal stove. The fragrance of sandalwood or jasmine is added to the basin if you are fortunate. Otherwise, the soap, often scented with camphor or resin, must suffice. You scrub away the residue of sleep and sweat, mindful that each morning, the quality of your skin and the subtle glow of health are your first lines of appeal to the men who will soon enter your life. The delicate motions of washing are mirrored in the careful cleaning of your teeth, brushing with a coarse twig and powdered charcoal or crushed mint leaves. It is tedious, repetitive, and essential small acts that collectively define survival in a profession dependent on appearances. Clothing is selected next. In these early hours, before the parlors are open, you lay out robes, sashes, and undergarments in a precise order. The embroidery is not merely decorative. It communicates wealth, family connections, and your status within the hierarchy of courtesans. The silk must be soft, without snags, and the colors must match the subtle codes of the day. Red is for auspicious beginnings, green for calm and stability, and blue for melancholic allure. Dressing yourself is an exercise in both patience and artistry. Each fold, each knot, must convey the appropriate image while allowing ease of movement for the long hours ahead. Hair is next. You sit before the small bronze mirror and arrange your hair into a complex series of buns and coils, holding each piece with pins carved from tortoiseshell or bamboo. The style you choose communicates more than beauty. It signals rank, availability, and temperament. A high bun might indicate a senior courtesan, respected and experienced, while a softer, cascading style might signal a newcomer, inviting intrigue from wealthier clients. You carefully apply powders and oils, creating a faint aroma that will linger throughout the day. Subtle enough not to overpower, but present enough to mark you as refined. Breakfast is sparse but deliberate. Often, a bowl of congee with pickled vegetables. Sometimes fresh fish if a favor was exchanged with a local fisherman, or a simple sweetened rice cake. Each bite is slow and intentional. Your body must endure long hours of sitting, smiling, conversing, and listening. Hunger is a quiet adversary, managed not by indulgence, but by strategic consumption. Every meal is calculated to maintain energy without disrupting the outward appearance of grace. By the time you finish, the city has fully awakened. Merchants have taken their positions on the streets, shouting prices for silk, tea, and porcelain. Laborers carry baskets filled with produce, carts creak under the weight of rice, and the first cloud of smoke rises from the chimneys of humble homes. You hear the faint notes of a pipa player tuning their instrument in a distant courtyard, the sound a gentle reminder of the cultural tapestry that surrounds the more sordid corners of your world. You step into the parlor corridor, the air now richer with opium smoke, curling like lazy serpents from the low tables. Men sit in small groups, sipping tea and waiting for the women to arrive. You navigate this space with practiced ease. Your steps are measured, deliberate. The slightest misstep could reveal nervousness, fatigue, or disinterest qualities that can cost opportunities, payment, or respect. You greet other courtesans with nods, small gestures that acknowledge both camaraderie and rivalry. Every glance and half smile is loaded with meaning, a code you have learned since the first day you were sold into this life. The morning continues with preparations for the first visitors. You rehearse your songs softly under your breath, adjusting the tempo and pitch to match what you know will be expected. Every note carries the weight of attention. A slight error could draw disapproval. Perfume is applied in the final touches. A hint of gardenia behind the ear, a trace of osmanthus at the wrist. Your presence must suggest refinement and subtlety, never overt, always curated. Finally, the parlor doors open. The first clients arrive, their footsteps echoing across the polished wooden floors. You are ready, dressed, perfumed, composed. You know their habits, their preferences, the times when their moods are most mercurial. You exchange pleasantries, small talk, and perform minor rituals of respect, bowing at just the right angle, smiling without revealing teeth, listening attentively to words that are often more about power than interest. Each encounter is a careful dance, performed countless times with the precision of someone who has learned that survival depends on small, invisible details rather than brute force. And yet, as the day begins in earnest, a thought lingers in the back of your mind, unspoken and unshakable. No matter how carefully you navigate this world, how skilled you become at pleasing, at surviving, the opium smoke hides dangers that even mastery cannot fully ward off. The city is larger than you, older than you, and indifferent to the fates of individual women, however skilled, however clever, however beautiful. What if, despite all the care, all the precision, all the silent strategy of your mornings, the world outside these walls changes faster than you can anticipate? Once the morning rituals conclude, the day unfolds within the Opium Parlor, a place both intoxicating and mundane. The walls are low, decorated with faded silk paintings of landscapes, mountains, and rivers, the kind meant to calm the eye, but often ignored as the real business of life continues in whispers and gestures. The room is thick with smoke, curling lazily from opium pipes that sit atop small tables. The scent is heavy, sweet, and slightly bitter, clinging to the hair and clothing of everyone who enters. This is your world now. A stage of subtle power plays, hidden alliances, and survival strategies that rely on perception as much as skill. The clients arrive in a measured rhythm. Merchants, officials, foreign traders, occasionally a writer or a poet with more curiosity than money. Each comes with expectations. Some are quiet, preferring the silent companionship of women who smoke and listen. Others are talkative, seeking entertainment, flirtation, and distraction from the burdens of commerce or bureaucracy. Each encounter must be approached with care. You do not simply serve, you assess, adapt, and guide the experience without overstepping boundaries that could provoke anger or suspicion. A smile held too long might be misread, a gesture too subtle ignored. Every interaction is a negotiation, and you are acutely aware that even a minor misstep could jeopardize not just income, but safety. Inside the parlor, seating is organized by rank and familiarity. The senior courtesans, often older and more experienced, occupy the prime seats near the windows or in alcoves that afford some privacy. You, depending on your seniority, may be seated near the entrance, your proximity allowing both attention and observation. From this position, you learn. You watch how men move, what gestures they make when they are pleased or impatient, and how they communicate with the servants who bring tea and light the charcoal under the opium pipes. These small details are crucial. Understanding the rhythm of conversation, the pauses between words, the gestures of hands resting lightly on a table or tapping in impatience, all these are part of the language of survival. The opium pipes themselves are objects of fascination and subtle social signaling. They are carved with care, often in bamboo or ivory, sometimes adorned with delicate engravings or inlaid with silver. The act of smoking is ritualistic. Charcoal is heated in a small lamp, the pipe assembled carefully, the opium placed precisely. The first inhale, taken with a particular slowness to demonstrate both skill and control. As a courtesan, you are not expected to smoke heavily, though many women do, partly to fit into the environment and partly to dull the edges of exhaustion or discomfort. Observing men as they smoke teaches you volumes about temperament and preference. The quiet, contemplative smoker, the impatient puffing of those accustomed to dominance, and the subtle changes in mood that indicate satisfaction or displeasure. Conversation in the parlor is equally strategic. Men test boundaries with questions about family, politics, and commerce. They gauge your knowledge and response, often more interested in subtle power displays than genuine curiosity. You answer, defer, or redirect, always careful not to reveal too much personal information. In this profession, knowledge is both a tool and a weapon. A slip of confidence, a laugh too loud, a secret revealed, can shift the balance of influence in a room. Other women watch too. Alliances are fluid. Friendships are tactical. The women you share the space with are not merely companions, they are competitors, sometimes protectors, sometimes manipulators, each navigating the parlor with her own understanding of survival. The work is taxing, though it rarely feels dramatic. Hours are spent listening, performing, maintaining posture, and presenting an appearance of serenity while managing fatigue, hunger, and subtle injuries from repetitive motions or poorly arranged seating. Meals are brought sporadically, small bowls of rice, tea, or occasionally a morsel of fish or meat. Many women eat silently, aware that the act of consuming too much or too little can signal need or vulnerability. The body becomes a carefully calibrated instrument, tuned for endurance and the outward appearance of grace. The parlor is also a site of information. Messages travel as easily in whispers as through letters. News of debts, business ventures, political intrigues, or the movements of local gangs circulates quietly. As a courtesan, you have a vantage point few others possess. The men who visit speak freely when they think their words are private, and the women around you hear everything. These details, seemingly mundane, can become tools for survival. Knowing who owes whom, which merchants are struggling, and which officials are corrupt can mean the difference between safety and disaster, or between wealth and destitution. Yet, despite this knowledge, danger is omnipresent. The opium smoke masks more than fatigue. It masks the shifting alliances of gangs, the sudden appearance of debt collectors, and the potential for violence. Disputes can erupt over minor slights, unpaid fees, or encroachments on territory. You learn to read the room, identifying early signs of tension, the tightening of a jaw, the tapping of a finger on a table, the subtle leaning away from another man's presence. Survival is as much about perception as it is about physical ability or charm. In quieter moments, your attention turns inward. You consider the trajectory that led you here, the family that sold you, the broker who guided your entry, the months or years of learning manners, music, conversation, and the small arts of negotiation. These reflections are tinged with melancholy, but they also reinforce your understanding that your present is a carefully navigated performance, not mere happenstance. You recall the small triumphs, the first client who praised your singing, the quiet moments of camaraderie with another woman, the successful navigation of a particularly demanding merchant's temper. These moments, though minor, become the fabric of endurance, stitching together days of monotony into a narrative of survival. By late afternoon, the rhythm changes. Fewer men arrive, and the ones who remain are often more affluent, seeking extended company rather than fleeting amusement. The women move with greater ease, their movements less about calculated charm and more about subtle comfort, guiding conversations into topics that benefit both parties. At this time, small acts of cunning appear, steering a wealthy merchant toward an opulent gift, coaxing a client into revealing information about rivals, or subtly asserting dominance through wit and conversation. These strategies are learned, practiced, and refined through repetition, forming a delicate balance between subservience and power. Despite the outward control, exhaustion never fully dissipates. The smoke, the humidity, the constant negotiation, the minute attention to etiquette, these leave their mark. Many women rely on opium themselves, not just to entertain, but to dull the physical and emotional strains of the day. It is a cycle of dependency, subtle and pervasive, that ensures the environment continues in a carefully orchestrated rhythm. Smoke, conversation, song, tea, and the ever-present possibility of danger lurking just beyond the walls. And yet, the most delicate tension remains unseen. You understand the power dynamics of the room, the subtle manipulations, the strategies for endurance, and the methods of observation. But outside the parlor, in the streets of Shanghai, the forces that shape your life are far larger and less predictable. Foreign influence, shifting laws, epidemics, and the whims of powerful men. How long can you maintain this careful dance before an external force disrupts the delicate balance you have cultivated? As the sun begins to set and shadows stretch across the lacquered tables, you realize the parlor is not merely a place of pleasure. It is a theater, a battlefield, and a classroom all at once. And while you have mastered its lessons, the world beyond its walls may not conform to the rules you have learned. Night falls over the district like a dense velvet curtain. The streets of Shanghai darken, lanterns flicker to life, and the quiet hum of daytime commerce fades into a slower, more deliberate rhythm. Within the opium parlor, the atmosphere shifts. The smoke grows heavier, curling in languid spirals from the ornate pipes, filling the room with a sweet, cloying haze that both comforts and disorients. The clients who remain are few but deliberate, men of wealth or influence, each seeking not simply pleasure but companionship, distraction, or validation. Your role, honed over years of practice, is to navigate their desires with skill, subtlety, and patience. As night deepens, performances change. Songs grow softer, slowed to match the languor induced by the opium. Conversation becomes more intimate, probing, yet always veiled in layers of social politeness. Here, you observe the nuances of power at play. A merchant revealing concern for business rivals, a foreigner accidentally betraying knowledge of a treaty or shipment, or an official testing the loyalties of the women around him. Listening becomes a weapon. Words are tools. The slightest hesitation, a carefully timed laugh, a measured gesture can influence not only the course of the evening but future advantages in the delicate ecosystem of the district. Despite the outward serenity, danger lingers. The narrow alleys beyond the parlor are far from safe after dark. Rival gangs patrol the area, enforcing rules, collecting debts, and asserting territorial dominance. Violence is rarely dramatic. It is often silent, a warning, a shadow that passes too quickly to be fully seen. Women in the parlor are acutely aware of these threats. Guards and allies are present, discreetly positioned, their presence both protective and signaling. Yet no precaution can entirely eliminate risk. A careless step, a misread gesture, or the wrong glance can draw unwanted attention, reminding every courtesan that safety is a fragile illusion. Some nights are quieter than others. On these evenings, you find a peculiar peace in the repetition of ritual. Lighting the lamp, arranging incense, and carefully laying out your clothing for the next day feels almost sacred. Each motion is deliberate, a way of imposing order on a world that is, in reality, chaotic and unpredictable. You may catch the soft strains of a pippa from a neighboring courtyard, or the distant laughter of street vendors closing their stalls. These ordinary sounds, mundane and persistent, anchor you to the world beyond the parlor, a reminder that life continues outside these smoke-filled walls, indifferent to your presence, yet strangely comforting. Interactions with clients often leave subtle marks, invisible to those outside the room. A wealthy merchant may leave a generous gift, signaling approval and ensuring future visits. A visiting official might share news of changes in taxation trade, or law. Information that is valuable not only for survival, but for strategic positioning within the parlor's intricate social hierarchy. And sometimes, a man may leave abruptly, frustrated, testing your ability to maintain composure and prevent disruption to the evening's rhythm. Every encounter is a lesson in patience, observation, and discretion, skills as vital as beauty, charm, or singing. As the night advances, exhaustion begins to accumulate. Hours of standing, sitting, smiling, conversing, and observing exact a toll on the body and mind. Opium, whether inhaled lightly or heavily, blurs the edges of fatigue, but cannot erase the underlying weariness. You may retreat briefly to a quieter corner, closing your eyes for a few stolen moments, aware that even brief respite is a calculated risk. Others occupy the space differently. Some smoke continuously, others whisper secrets, and a few simply sit in silence, eyes following the drifting smoke, reflecting on the day that has passed and the uncertain day to come. Personal interactions between women, though understated, carry weight. Alliances shift with subtle gestures, a shared smile, a nod of acknowledgement, a whispered warning. Rivalries simmer beneath polite conversation, occasionally erupting in minor disputes over territory, clientele, or perceived slights. Yet even conflict is constrained by necessity. The women depend on one another as much as they compete, navigating a delicate balance of cooperation and competition that sustains the parlor's functioning. These relationships are lessons in human behavior, patience, and subtle negotiation. Health, often precarious, becomes more apparent at night. Chronic respiratory issues, the physical toll of repeated performances, and the impact of opium exposure are omnipresent. Those with minor ailments learn to conceal discomfort. Visible weakness invites pity, ridicule, or loss of status. Medicine is rudimentary, relying on herbal remedies, poultices, and advice from more experienced women who have survived longer than most. You may see small acts of quiet caregiving, a woman slipping a herb into tea, a hand applied to soothe a cough, or a word of warning whispered in a way that preserves dignity while offering aid. Survival is as much about endurance and adaptation as it is about skill and charm. As the final clients depart and the lanterns are extinguished one by one, the room empties to a quiet hum, punctuated by the occasional creak of wood or the rustle of silk. You gather your belongings, carefully folding robes, packing hairpins, and arranging personal items. Each object, no matter how small, is a reminder of the day's routines and the delicate equilibrium that must be maintained tomorrow. Reflection comes naturally in this solitude. You think about choices made, alliances formed, mistakes narrowly avoided, and opportunities seized. The day, like countless before it, has been a mixture of monotony, strategy, small victories, and quiet resilience. Yet even as you prepare to sleep, a lingering thought persists. The world beyond the parlor is vast, unpredictable, and often indifferent. Laws may change, foreign traders may impose new customs, epidemics may sweep through neighborhoods, and rival factions may disrupt the fragile order you have mastered. The routines of the parlor, the careful rituals of appearance, performance, and observation, these provide security only in a small, immediate sphere. Beyond the walls, fate remains uncertain, and your survival depends not just on skill, but on adaptability, intuition, and sometimes sheer luck. You lie back on the narrow bed, listening to the distant sounds of the river, the soft clatter of closing shutters, and the faint cough of a laborer returning home. The air smells faintly of tea, sandalwood, and lingering opium smoke, a mixture that has marked your presence here for years. Sleep beckons, not as a reprieve, but as preparation. The next day, the same careful navigation, observation, and endurance will begin anew. In the quiet of the night, you recognize a truth as old as the city itself. Survival is not a single act, but a sequence of repeated, disciplined choices, each one small, precise, and often invisible to the world beyond. And so, you drift into sleep, aware that the routines you have mastered, the alliances you have formed, and the skills you have honed may yet be tested by forces beyond your control. The city waits, indifferent but persistent, and the question lingers in the mind: how long can one maintain grace and survival in a world defined by smoke, shadow, and subtle power? The Opium Parlor opens in a dim haze, a world removed from the streets of Shanghai, yet intricately woven into the rhythm of the city. The windows are shuttered against the brightness of day, the low light filtered through rice paper lanterns, casting a warm, muted glow on polished wooden surfaces and silk screens. The scent of burning opium is pervasive, sweet and heavy, curling through the room with a slow persistence that seems almost alive. You step inside and immediately become part of the intricate choreography of the space, where every movement, glance, and gesture carries meaning. Tables are arranged in deliberate clusters. Each table hosts a small group of men, often the same patrons who arrive day after day, their habits as predictable as the rising and setting sun. They sit cross-legged on floor cushions, the opium pipe assembled with precision, the resin prepared with care. The first inhalation is ritualistic, slow and deliberate, producing a soft glow at the tip of the pipe that signifies both presence and control. You observe, always aware that their mannerisms, posture, and tone reveal far more than words ever could. The quiet, contemplative smoker, the impatient puffing of a merchant eager to close a deal, or the distracted foreigner unfamiliar with local customs, each is a signal to be read, catalogued, and remembered. For the courtesans, the parlor is simultaneously stage, battlefield, and sanctuary. Women move gracefully between tables, their silk robes rustling softly, gestures measured, smiles restrained yet precise. Conversation is both art and negotiation. Every question answered, every story shared, is calibrated to maintain favor, gauge temperament, and assert subtle influence. A client might inquire casually about a business venture, and the answer you provide is more than information. It is a reflection of skill, discretion, and the ability to navigate complex social currents. In these interactions, words are as valuable as money, each carefully deployed to maintain balance and advantage. Observation is paramount. The women watch not only the men but each other. Alliances shift subtly throughout the day, communicated through small nods, gestures, or whispered advice. A senior courtesan may offer guidance to a newcomer, teaching how to read a patron's mood, when to offer tea, or how to present a song at the perfect moment. These lessons are often unspoken, learned through careful attention and repetition rather than formal instruction. Even minor infractions, a misjudged smile, a glance held too long, can ripple through the social fabric of the parlor, altering perceptions and potentially affecting future opportunities. The physical environment shapes behavior as much as the people themselves. Low, latticed screens provide partial privacy while maintaining openness, allowing for observation without intrusion. Carpets and cushions absorb sound, dampening footsteps and creating a quieter, more contemplative space. Small basins of water for washing hands, trays with teacups, and carefully maintained opium paraphernalia are positioned with deliberate care. Every detail, from the placement of a chair to the angle of a lantern, contributes to an environment that facilitates prolonged engagement, comfort, and ritualized interaction. Opium itself is central, not only as substance, but as social currency. The act of smoking is layered with meaning. Mastery indicates sophistication, patience signals self-control, and indulgence communicates trust or intimacy. The patterns of smoke, the rhythm of inhalation, and the way each man handles his pipe are all subtle indicators of status, temperament, and disposition. Courtesans learn these patterns quickly, adjusting conversation, posture, and presence to align with the energy of each table. The smallest miscalculation, a hurried gesture, an abrupt comment, can disrupt the delicate equilibrium of the room. Time moves differently inside the parlor. Hours pass in what feels like minutes, punctuated by small rituals, the lighting of a lamp, the refilling of tea, the careful rotation of opium pipes. Meals are brought quietly, usually small bowls of rice or sweetened snacks, consumed with minimal disruption. Hygiene is maintained in the margins, hands washed at intervals, hair adjusted, robes smoothed. The day's demands are relentless yet repetitive, creating a rhythm that is both meditative and taxing. You notice the weariness in some of the older women, the slight stiffness in their movements, the way their smiles are more carefully measured, a product of long days and countless repetitions. The men, too, display subtle patterns of behavior. Some prefer conversation, engaging in debates or storytelling that reveals not only intellect but social rank. Others favor silence, watching and listening, their presence itself a challenge to be navigated. Courtesans must adjust, matching energy, timing responses, and calibrating gestures to maintain both interest and respect. Even minor miscalculations can alter relationships. A joke poorly timed, a gesture misread, or attention given inappropriately can shift favor or provoke subtle disapproval. In this environment, survival and success depend as much on psychological acuity as on beauty or skill. The parlor is also a site of information exchange. News travels faster here than in any official channel. A foreign trader may reveal the latest developments in shipping or politics. A local official may hint at upcoming regulatory changes. Women often learn about debts, rivalries, and disputes, information that can be leveraged strategically. These subtle networks of knowledge are as vital as currency, allowing for maneuvering in a world where reputation and perception carry immense weight. In many ways, the parlor functions as a microcosm of Shanghai itself, a densely interconnected network of interests, influence, and survival. Despite the outward calm, the parlor is fragile. Conflict can erupt unexpectedly. A disagreement over seating, a slight perceived insult, or a mismanaged interaction with a client. The women, highly attuned to tension, adjust accordingly, moving silently to diffuse potential issues or to assert subtle authority. It is a world of constant vigilance, where success depends on reading signs invisible to those outside and responding with precision, patience, and discretion. As evening approaches, the parlor transforms subtly. The pace slows, conversations deepen, and clients' indulgence becomes more deliberate. The rituals of song, tea, and opium intensify, producing an almost hypnotic rhythm. Courtesans navigate this tempo, adjusting not only for clients, but for the subtle interplay of power, alliances, and perception within the room. By nightfall, the environment is thick with smoke, sound, and unspoken agreements, a carefully maintained equilibrium where skill, observation, and subtlety dictate outcomes as much as fortune or charm. And yet, even in mastery, a question lingers, quiet but persistent. For all the control within these walls, for all the skill, observation, and careful negotiation, the world beyond the parlor remains unpredictable. Epidemics, shifting political power, foreign interventions, and the movements of rival factions can all render preparation meaningless. How long can one navigate the intoxicating, ordered world of the opium parlor before forces beyond the walls impose themselves? By mid-morning, the opium parlor hums with a rhythm that is almost imperceptible to outsiders. To you, however, every nuance carries weight. The slight rise of a shoulder, the angle of a gaze, the subtle curling of smoke toward a patron's face. The room is more than a place of leisure, it is a stage where invisible hierarchies dictate every interaction. Each person present, client or courtesan, occupies a specific role, and deviation from that role risks disruption. Observing these patterns is essential. Survival depends on anticipating behavior, understanding subtleties, and maneuvering within this delicate ecosystem. Courtesans themselves exist within a complex ranking system. Senior women command respect, not only for beauty, but for mastery of social nuance, musical skill, and knowledge of local affairs. Their seats are strategically placed near windows or alcoves, affording both visibility and privacy. Junior women, often new to the profession, occupy peripheral positions, their movements scrutinized by both patrons and colleagues. These hierarchies are reinforced through subtle gestures, a nod, a touch on the arm, a soft-spoken instruction. Small signs of deference, or failure to exhibit them, can signal status, respect, or rivalry. You learn quickly which alliances are advantageous and which rivalries can quietly destabilize your day. Patrons, too, operate within layered hierarchies. Merchants who regularly attend the parlor possess informal status, their wealth translating into influence over seating arrangements, conversation, and attention from the women. Visiting officials or foreign traders often bring with them a different form of power, sometimes subtle, sometimes overt, derived from knowledge of law, commerce, or international relations. Every interaction requires careful calibration. How much information to reveal, how to respond to requests, and when to withdraw attention. Success is measured not merely in financial gain, but in the ability to maintain favor and preserve safety. A critical dimension of parlor life is information. Words spoken in confidence travel quietly, often shaping futures more than the visible acts of commerce. Gossip is currency, not merely idle chatter. Stories of debt, betrayal, political maneuvering, or business ventures circulate, carried by attentive courtesans who know how to use them. Knowledge, carefully observed and selectively shared, can be leveraged strategically. Steering a patron's favor, warning a colleague of potential danger, or positioning oneself for opportunities that others cannot perceive. In this way, the parlor functions as both theater and intelligence hub, a place where subtle influence is as valuable as money. Relationships among the women are nuanced and rarely overt. Alliances form through shared experiences, mutual protection, and strategic cooperation, yet they coexist with rivalries that simmer beneath the surface. A shared nod of understanding during a tense encounter may signal trust, while a slight hesitation or missed acknowledgement can indicate suspicion or competition. You observe patterns carefully, noting which women are likely to offer aid, which might exploit vulnerability, and which navigate both with skillful neutrality. In these interactions, discretion is essential. Revealing too much about intentions or alliances can result in social disadvantage or danger. Physical endurance is a persistent concern. Hours of standing, performing, and maintaining posture, often in humid conditions with little ventilation, create constant strain. Opium offers relief, dulling fatigue, and providing an altered state conducive to both endurance and social interaction. Yet it also carries risk. Some women rely on it more heavily than others, their dependency both visible and invisible in their movements and interactions. Maintaining health is critical, yet methods are rudimentary. Herbal remedies, poultices, and lessons passed down from more experienced colleagues form the primary means of coping with chronic aches, respiratory difficulties, and the wear of repeated performance. The parlor's architecture itself enforces subtle social codes. Screens and alcoves allow partial concealment, creating pockets of privacy where delicate negotiations can occur. Yet maintaining visibility remains important to ensure patrons perceive attention and respect. Seating arrangements are carefully considered. Senior women occupy positions that maximize both visibility and control, while younger courtesans navigate spaces that allow observation without overstepping boundaries. Lighting is equally strategic, with lanterns and lamps adjusted to create a soft, flattering glow while masking signs of fatigue, imperfection, or illness. Every detail is calibrated to maintain the illusion of effortless grace. Music and poetry provide both entertainment and social leverage. Courtesans sing or play instruments to calm, amuse, or impress patrons, often selecting pieces with subtle messages or emotional resonance. Knowledge of literature, history, or local politics enhances credibility, signaling education and sophistication. Even minor displays of wit or insight can elevate status, attract attention, and secure longer-term patronage. Performance is never merely aesthetic. It is a demonstration of intelligence, discipline, and strategic capability, reinforcing position within the complex hierarchy of the parlor. Financial negotiation, while subtle, is omnipresent. Payments for services are often delivered discreetly, in envelopes or small coins, yet the method and amount carry meaning. Gift giving is another avenue of influence, allowing patrons to signal favor, establish expectation, or manipulate relationships. Women adept at interpreting these gestures can leverage advantage not only for immediate benefit, but for future stability, accumulating resources and influence in a system where outward appearance and subtle strategy are intimately intertwined. Yet even as these dynamics unfold, the external world exerts quiet pressure. Epidemics, shifting regulations, and political unrest loom outside the walls. Foreign influence increasingly shapes commerce and social expectations. Often unpredictably, the city itself, with its tides of migration, trade, and violence, intrudes upon the controlled microcosm of the parlor, reminding all who occupy it that survival is never absolute. You may master internal hierarchies, perfect routines, and navigate complex social webs. Yet forces beyond the walls remain unpredictable, indifferent, and occasionally disruptive. By late afternoon, patterns solidify. Senior women continue to assert influence through subtle gestures and conversation. Junior courtesans navigate observation, learning, and performance. Patrons settle into predictable routines, some testing boundaries, others seeking comfort and entertainment. Opium smoke thickens, conversation slows, and the rhythm of the parlor becomes almost hypnotic. Success is measured in nuanced ways. A client's lingering attention, a gift received, a whispered warning, or piece of news successfully relayed. Life in the parlor is both mundane and meticulous, a constant balance of observation, adaptation, and subtle exertion of influence. Even in mastery, however, uncertainty persists. Relationships can shift overnight. Reputations are fragile, and the broader currents of commerce, politics, and health remain ever-present threats. The parlor provides both sanctuary and exposure, a controlled environment within a city of shifting, often chaotic, forces. In this delicate ecosystem, every action, gesture, and decision carries weight, reminding you that life in the opium parlor is not merely about pleasure, but about endurance, strategy, and survival. And as evening approaches, the quiet tension lingers. Even in an environment mastered, in a rhythm learned through years of repetition, the unpredictable world outside may demand adaptation, resilience, or sacrifice. How will the next day shift these fragile balances, and which choices will determine survival within the delicate, smoky corridors of the parlor? Night descends on Shanghai like a heavy curtain, softening the sharp edges of streets and alleys, while the city itself seems to exhale a slower, more deliberate rhythm. Inside the opium parlor, the atmosphere deepens into a haze of ritual and indulgence. Lanterns cast their muted light, illuminating faces partially veiled by curling opium smoke. Shadows shift across polished tables, cushions, and carved screens, blending together into a tapestry of movement, gesture, and subtle expression. As the final clients arrive, the dynamics of the room shift. Men who have lingered throughout the day now seek intimacy, distraction, or counsel. Their desires are not always overt. They often communicate through subtle signals, a softened gaze, the cadence of speech, the slight shift of posture. Courtesans read these signals with precision, matching their presence to the needs of each patron, while simultaneously navigating the layered social hierarchies of colleagues and rivals. Every gesture, every note, sung or conversation steered, is a careful exercise in both art and survival. The night is also a time of reflection for the women. Those at the periphery observe not only patrons but colleagues, noting the subtle displays of influence, alliances, and minor triumphs that accumulate over hours. Small acts, a carefully timed compliment, a discreet intervention, the skillful negotiation of a patron's expectations build reputation and secure favor. Each movement, each decision, reinforces the social order within the parlor, yet also leaves room for error. A misstep might go unnoticed or escalate into subtle loss of status, illustrating that even mastery is never absolute. Opium continues to define the night. The smoke, sweet and intoxicating, becomes both a tool and a trap. Patrons inhale deliberately, seeking calm, clarity, or escape, while some women partake lightly to dull fatigue, ease discomfort, or enhance social performance. The ritual itself, lighting the pipe, preparing the resin, inhaling with care, is a performance layered with social meaning. Mastery of this ritual signals sophistication. Indulgence in excess signals vulnerability or distraction. Observing the interplay between control and surrender offers lessons in patience, resilience, and subtle power. Throughout the evening, alliances among the women are tested. Rivals may quietly compete for attention or favor, while allies reinforce one another's positions through whispered counsel or strategic positioning. Small interventions, a timely song, a gentle touch, a discreet exchange of information can alter outcomes, guiding patrons' behavior and ensuring both safety and advantage. These actions are subtle yet essential, forming a network of influence that underpins survival in a world dominated by observation, competition, and hierarchical nuance. Patrons themselves are subject to the rhythms of the night. Some grow contemplative, revealing worries, desires, or secrets they would withhold in daylight. Others become impatient or agitated, their moods shifting with the opium's effect, the environment, or the interpersonal dynamics of the parlor. Courtesans must respond fluidly, adjusting tone, gesture, and attention. Success is measured in subtle ways. A relaxed smile, a prolonged conversation, a gift left behind, or a minor disclosure that strengthens trust and encourages return patronage. Each outcome is a marker of skill, perception, and adaptability. Beyond the room, the world remains unpredictable. Outside the parlor, foreign influence grows stronger. Trade regulations shift, concessions expand, epidemics spread quietly through densely populated neighborhoods, and political tensions ripple through city administration. The careful mastery of social dynamics inside the parlor provides only a fragile buffer against these forces. Survival, while seemingly dependent on charm, knowledge, and skill, is ultimately subject to chance and circumstance beyond anyone's control. As the night deepens, the parlor empties. Patrons depart quietly, leaving small gifts, coins, or envelopes, tangible evidence of favor and acknowledgement. Women gather belongings, smooth robes, pack hairpins, and adjust ornaments for the night. Each item carries memory, strategy, and survival, evidence of subtle victories, careful navigation, and lessons learned through hours of observation and interaction. In the quiet that follows, reflections emerge. The day's successes and near misses accumulate as experience, forming a mental map of human behavior, hierarchy, and endurance that will guide future interactions. The last act is preparation for rest, though sleep is never complete reprieve. The air is still heavy with smoke and subtle scents of tea, perfume, and opium, a mixture that lingers in hair, clothing, and skin. These traces mark presence, participation, and survival, connecting you to the continuum of days in the parlor. Even in rest, the mind catalogues events, assesses alliances, and anticipates tomorrow's challenges. Mastery is ongoing, incremental, and fragile. Each day is another exercise in observation, adaptability, and resilience. As you lie down, listening to distant river sounds and occasional footsteps in the alley, a quiet realization emerges. The opium parlor is not merely a site of pleasure, nor merely a space of hierarchy and commerce. It is a microcosm of survival, a complex system where subtle power, careful observation, and strategic endurance determine outcomes in a world that is indifferent, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. You have navigated another day successfully, yet the forces beyond these walls political, social, and environmental, remain unconquered. In this space, mastery is relative, survival is conditional, and resilience is measured in repeated choices, small, deliberate, and often invisible to the world outside. You have learned the art of influence, endurance, and perception. Yet, the lingering question persists, haunting even the quiet of night. How long can one maintain equilibrium in a world where control is always partial, and the unforeseen can dismantle even the most carefully maintained order? Sleep comes reluctantly, a temporary pause in the constant navigation of smoke, shadow, and social nuance. Outside, the city moves on, unaware, indifferent, and inevitable, while inside, the lessons of the day persist, shaping strategy, perception, and the quiet intelligence required to endure in a world defined by subtle power and ephemeral favor. The streets of Shanghai in the 1890 seconds are a mosaic of activity, with laborers hauling baskets of rice and vegetables, merchants shouting prices for silk and porcelain, and rickshaws clattering over uneven cobblestones. Amid this bustle, the teahouses occupy a unique and crucial place in the city's social and economic fabric. They are not merely places to drink tea, they are centers of commerce, gossip, negotiation, and survival. For women who work here, whether as courtesans, servers, or entertainers, these spaces represent both opportunity and danger, a delicate environment where skill, perception, and endurance determine daily life. You arrive at a tea house just as the morning haze begins to lift. The wooden structure is modest, with latticed windows, low tables, and cushions for seating. The scent of boiling tea, steamed buns, and occasionally incense mingles with the humidity that drifts in from the nearby river. Inside, the air is already warm. A mixture of bodies, brewing leaves, and the faint tang of charcoal fires used for heating water. Women move swiftly among the tables, their movements precise and measured, offering tea, clearing dishes, or performing brief songs to entertain patrons. Every action, however small, is part of a performance calibrated for both efficiency and subtle influence. For the women, mornings begin with preparation. Robes are carefully selected, simple fabrics for laborious tasks, or embroidered silks for interactions with more influential patrons. Hair is arranged according to status, age, and anticipated encounters. A visual code that communicates experience, availability, and professionalism. Perfume, when used, is applied sparingly, a hint of jasmine at the wrist or sandalwood behind the ear. These details, though subtle, are essential. In a male-dominated space, appearances convey not just beauty, but credibility, reliability, and strategic intent. Tea preparation itself is ritualistic and demanding. Large kettles of water must be heated to precise temperatures over charcoal stoves. Leaves are measured with care, their quality assessed by color, aroma, and texture. The pour must be deliberate, the cup presented with both grace and timing. Patrons, often men of commerce, officials, or visiting foreigners, watch attentively. Their evaluation extends beyond the taste of the tea to the demeanor, precision, and attention of the server. Even minor errors, a slightly tilted cup, a spill, a delayed pour can affect perceptions, revealing inexperience or carelessness. Interaction with patrons is both delicate and strategic. Conversation is guided carefully, balancing attentiveness with subtle disengagement. Men inquire about business, politics, or the health of family members. Responses must be crafted to maintain politeness, signal understanding, and preserve safety. In this environment, words are currency. A casually shared piece of knowledge can establish credibility. An ill-considered comment can provoke suspicion or offense. Listening becomes as crucial as speaking, a skill honed through careful observation and experience. The hierarchy among women is evident even in these modest establishments. Senior servers and courtesans command both respect and deference. Their seating positions, the tables they approach, and the patrons they serve are carefully regulated. Junior women learn through observation and repetition, mimicking gestures, phrases, and timing until their performance achieves a semblance of competence. Peer alliances emerge quietly, often through mutual aid, shared tasks, or subtle signaling. Yet rivalry simmers just beneath the surface, manifesting in minor disputes over clientele, placement, or recognition. Survival requires awareness, discretion, and the ability to navigate both cooperation and competition. Financial negotiations are embedded in daily life. Patrons may offer extra coins, gifts, or favors for attentive service or skillful conversation. These exchanges are rarely overt, often performed discreetly to preserve the decorum of the tea house. Understanding the nuances, what gift signals genuine appreciation, what gesture indicates expectation, or which act secures. Repeat patronage is critical. Women who navigate these subtleties successfully can accumulate resources, gain influence, and secure relative stability within an otherwise precarious existence. Tea houses also serve as centers of information. Gossip, news of business ventures, political developments, and social events circulate rapidly. Women who are attentive can learn who owes debts, which merchants are failing, and which officials are sympathetic or hostile. Knowledge gathered quietly becomes a form of power, allowing strategic decision-making that extends beyond the immediate confines of service. The tea house, therefore, is not merely a workplace, but a hub of social intelligence, where careful observation and subtle negotiation determine both opportunity and security. The rhythm of the day is punctuated by the arrival and departure of patrons. Morning and early afternoon attract a mix of laborers and merchants, while late afternoons draw officials, foreign traders, and men seeking companionship or discreet business discussions. Each group requires nuanced adaptation. The energy, language, and attentiveness demanded by a wealthy official differ from those required by a casual local merchant. Women must adjust posture, tone, and attention continuously, sustaining performance even as fatigue accumulates. The work is physically and emotionally demanding, yet repetition allows mastery, and mastery provides a fragile sense of control. Even minor distractions carry risk. Spilled tea, an inattentive smile, or delayed service can provoke dissatisfaction, impacting reputation and future income. Observing the broader social network, how patrons interact, who observes whom, and the subtle signals exchanged among colleagues is as essential as any technical skill. This constant vigilance ensures not only survival, but the potential for advancement, whether through favor, reputation, or access to more influential clientele. As evening approaches, the pace slows slightly. Conversations become more deliberate, patrons linger longer, and the subtle interplay of hierarchy, performance, and observation intensifies. Women consolidate their learnings, recalling the interactions of the day, the nuances of gestures, and the small victories or near misses. The tea house, in these moments, becomes a stage for both reflection and anticipation, a space where strategy, endurance, and insight coalesce. And yet, as the day winds down, a lingering thought remains. For all the skill, observation, and careful negotiation, the world beyond the tea house is unpredictable. Political shifts, epidemics, foreign trade pressures, and personal misfortune can undermine even the most meticulously maintained balance. How long can survival be maintained in a male-dominated city where influence is subtle, wealth is tenuous, and fortune is often fleeting? By mid-morning, the tea house has settled into a rhythm that, to the untrained eye, might appear mundane, even repetitive. Yet for those who work within it, every moment is layered with social signals, power plays, and survival calculations. You notice how senior women position themselves near influential patrons, commanding both visibility and respect. Their mastery is evident in every gesture. A softly modulated voice, a carefully timed laugh, or the delicate placement of a teacup Junior women, often new to the craft, occupy less prominent spaces, learning through observation, while carefully negotiating interactions with both patrons and colleagues. The hierarchy is subtle but pervasive. Every action within the room communicates rank, skill, and social awareness. The patrons themselves create another layer of complexity. Merchants, officials, and visitors each bring unique expectations and unspoken rules. Some seek quiet companionship, others are eager to test boundaries, and a few attempt to assert dominance through conversation or gestures. The women must calibrate their responses continuously: when to speak, when to remain silent, when to smile, and when to offer a song or anecdote. Small miscalculations, an ill-timed joke, a glance misread, or a delayed response can erode reputation and reduce future opportunities. Success requires not just charm, but acute social intelligence. Information flows as quietly as tea is poured. A comment made by a client about a merchant's failing shipment, an offhand remark regarding an official's intentions, or gossip shared between women at different tables all carry potential significance. The tea house is, in effect, a microcosm of the city, a network of influence, intelligence, and subtle negotiation. Those who can interpret this information and act judiciously gain advantages that extend beyond daily survival, affecting income, safety, and social standing. In this environment, knowledge is power, and discretion is essential. Rivalries among women are nuanced, rarely expressed openly, but always present. Competition for attention, favor, and position is constant, yet cooperation is necessary for maintaining the functional rhythm of the tea house. A shared nod or whispered warning may prevent an error or diffuse a potential conflict with a patron. Meanwhile, subtle gestures of dominance or disapproval, shifting closer to a patron, speaking before another, or placing an item more prominently communicate social position within the staff. These interactions are exercises in strategy, observation, and patience, forming a quiet battlefield of influence and survival. Physical and emotional endurance are tested daily. Standing for hours on uneven floors, serving tea in stifling heat, and maintaining a poised and attentive demeanor is exhausting. Many women rely on small rituals, stretching subtly between tables, sipping tea themselves, or using discreet herbs to maintain alertness to manage fatigue. The work is repetitive, almost meditative, yet it demands constant awareness. A lapse in focus can lead to social or financial consequences, highlighting the fragile balance between exertion, skill, and subtle influence. The tea house also functions as a training ground for social intelligence. Observing interactions between patrons, noting subtle changes in demeanor, and anticipating responses cultivates a keen awareness of human behavior. Women learn not only how to manage clients, but also how to interpret complex social hierarchies and alliances. This skill is essential for long-term survival, as external forces from shifting economic policies to rival establishments can change the rules at any moment. Adaptability becomes a key asset, allowing women to navigate uncertainty with minimal disruption to personal security or social standing. Gift-giving and payment structures are particularly instructive in understanding subtle power dynamics. Patrons may leave coins discreetly, offer gifts of silk or food, or provide letters of recommendation or introduction. Each gesture carries layered meaning: a sign of favor, an expectation of continued attention, or an assertion of influence. Courtesans who can interpret these signs correctly not only maintain patronage, but also strategically position themselves for future advantage. Financial acumen is inseparable from social intelligence, creating a dual layer of survival that extends beyond mere service. The external environment remains a constant undercurrent. Epidemics, political instability, and foreign intervention create pressures that are both invisible and pervasive. While the tea house provides relative stability, the broader currents of Shanghai are unpredictable. A merchant may suddenly disappear, a shipment fail, or a local regulation shift events that ripple into the parlor and affect daily operations. Women must integrate knowledge of these external pressures into their strategies, balancing immediate obligations with long-term survival in an unstable and often hostile environment. Even routine interactions carry significance. The way a cup is poured, a story told, or a song performed communicates subtle messages to patrons and colleagues alike. Minor errors can escalate into social consequences, while adept navigation can secure trust, favor, and influence. Every moment, no matter how mundane, is an opportunity to learn, assert presence, or gain advantage. Survival is not a single act, but a continuum of deliberate choices, each one layered with social, emotional, and practical meaning. As the afternoon progresses, patterns become more predictable, yet remain fraught with potential shifts. Senior women continue to assert influence through strategic placement and carefully timed interventions. Junior women observe, practice, and occasionally test boundaries, balancing ambition with caution. Patrons settle into habitual behavior, some growing more relaxed and forthcoming, others testing limits. The tea house operates as a microcosm of negotiation, hierarchy, and endurance, a controlled environment where survival depends on perception, adaptability, and subtle assertion of skill. Yet, for all the mastery cultivated, a quiet tension persists. External forces, unpredictable and uncontrollable, loom beyond the walls. Political developments, epidemics, foreign pressures, or personal misfortune can disrupt even the most carefully maintained balance. The tea house provides shelter, yet the world outside remains indifferent. How long can women navigate these overlapping systems of hierarchy, influence, and survival before the unpredictable forces of the city impose themselves? As twilight settles over Shanghai, the streets soften into shadows, lanterns flicker to life, and the city exudes a slower, more deliberate rhythm. Inside the tea house, the atmosphere shifts. Patrons linger a little longer, conversations deepen, and subtle dynamics that were invisible during the day become more apparent. The women move with practiced precision, balancing attentiveness with restraint, performance with observation, and endurance with strategy. The evening is both the culmination of the day's labor and a rehearsal for the challenges yet to come. Senior women command attention effortlessly. Their gestures are measured, their voices modulated, and their presence anchored by years of experience navigating both patrons and colleagues. A nod here, a soft question there, a carefully chosen story or song. Each action communicates expertise, influence, and control. Junior women, meanwhile, navigate this environment with a mixture of observation and action, learning the intricacies of timing, subtlety, and hierarchy. Their movements, though less assured, are deliberate attempts to balance deference with initiative, signaling both potential and respect for established order. Patrons, too, exhibit distinct rhythms at night. Merchants, officials, and foreign visitors reveal aspects of themselves concealed during daylight. Stories emerge, concerns are voiced, and small gestures of trust are offered. Courtesans, attuned to these nuances, respond with delicacy. A question carefully framed, a song chosen to soothe, or a subtle gesture that communicates understanding. Success is measured in intangible outcomes, smiles, lingering attention, minor disclosures, and subtle signs of favor. These moments, though fleeting, form the backbone of influence and security within the tea house. The air is thick with the scent of tea, incense, and charcoal fires, mingling with the quiet hum of conversation and laughter. The women move gracefully among tables, their presence both visible and discreet. A spilled cup avoided, a comment redirected, or a story told at precisely the right moment can prevent friction, secure patronage, or reinforce alliances. These are the small acts of mastery, cumulative in effect, that sustain both reputation and daily survival. In this environment, skill is as much about timing and perception as it is about beauty or charm. Rivalries among the women, often subtle during the day, become more pronounced at night. Competition for attention, position, and influence manifests through small gestures. leaning slightly closer to a favored patron, interjecting in conversation, or managing the sequence of service with discretion. Yet cooperation remains essential. Shared observations, quiet warnings, or discreet aid can prevent mistakes that might jeopardize both individuals and the functioning of the tea house. Survival is thus a balance between competition and collaboration, a constant negotiation conducted in whispers, gestures, and glances. Financial considerations remain central. Coins, gifts, or letters of recommendation left by patrons serve as both acknowledgement and strategic leverage. Understanding the subtleties of these exchanges, the meaning of timing, value, and method allows women to accumulate influence and resources. Decisions about whether to accept a gift openly, discreetly, or not at all reflect a sophisticated understanding of social and economic hierarchies, as well as personal boundaries. Each choice, however minor, can ripple outward, influencing reputation, future opportunities, and survival. Beyond the tea house, the city continues its complex, unpredictable rhythm. Political shifts, foreign influence, epidemics, and economic fluctuations exert pressure on every aspect of daily life. Women within the tea house, while experts at managing internal dynamics, must remain alert to these external forces. A shipment delayed, a regulation imposed, or a sudden illness can alter the delicate balance of survival. Knowledge of the wider environment becomes as crucial as skill within the parlor, allowing women to anticipate challenges and adapt strategies accordingly. As night deepens, the pace slows. Conversations become more deliberate, movements more fluid, and gestures more subtle. Women consolidate the day's lessons, recalling successes, near misses, and nuanced social interactions. The tea house transforms from a place of service to a space of reflection and preparation. The experience accumulated over months or years becomes the lens through which new encounters are interpreted, allowing for continuous learning and adaptation. Finally, as the last patrons leave and the lanterns are extinguished one by one, silence settles over the tea house. The women gather personal belongings, smooth robes, adjust hair ornaments, and prepare for the brief rest that precedes another day. The air remains heavy with the scent of tea, incense, and human presence, a reminder of the day's work, the subtle victories, and the challenges that lie ahead. Sleep is a temporary reprieve, an interval in a continuum of endurance, observation, and careful negotiation. And yet, even in the quiet of night, awareness persists. The balance maintained within the tea house is fragile, contingent on skill, perception, and strategy, but never absolute. The world outside, indifferent, unpredictable, and occasionally hostile, continues to exert its influence. The question remains, how long can women sustain survival, influence, and dignity in a city where social hierarchies, economic pressures, and external forces intersect unpredictably? In this space of ritual, observation, and careful maneuvering, the lessons are clear. Endurance is cumulative, mastery is iterative, and survival depends on constant adaptation. The tea house is not merely a workplace, it is a microcosm of resilience, strategy, and human subtlety. And as the night deepens, the women rest with this understanding, preparing for the next day, in a city where every gesture, glance, and decision carries consequence, and where survival is a practice of intelligence, patience, and courage. The morning fog drifts over the Huangpu River, a grey haze settling across the bustling docks of Shanghai. The city's heartbeat is here, in the low murmur of barges, the creak of wooden planks under heavy footfalls, and the rhythmic slap of cargo nets. From sunrise to late afternoon, the docks are alive with motion, a choreography of labor that rarely pauses. Men haul crates of tea, silk, and porcelain. Women and children follow behind, carrying provisions or assisting in smaller tasks. It is a world of endurance, routine, and survival, where each day is measured in sweat, precision, and observation. Families living along the docks are intimately tied to commerce. Housing is modest wooden shacks raised on stilts, lining narrow alleys between warehouses and wharves. The structures are simple, often cramped, but functional. The river is both a lifeline and a threat. It provides water for washing and cooking, a route for trade, yet flooding and accidents are ever-present dangers. Daily life revolves around the movement of goods, schedules of shipping, and the physical demands of survival. Children as young as 5 carry small loads or assist in maintaining household chores, learning from observation the skills necessary for eventual participation in the labor economy. Women bear the dual responsibility of household management and labor, while men lift, load, and transport heavy cargo. Women manage provisioning, food preparation, laundry, and care for younger children. Many also engage in supplementary work, mending sails, weaving baskets, or performing small-scale trading of goods. The day begins before sunrise, with stoves lit, rice soaked, and preparations for long hours undertaken in near darkness. Attention to detail is essential. A mismanaged meal, spoiled ingredient, or misplaced cargo list can ripple through the day, affecting both survival and income. The rhythm of the docks is punctuated by negotiation and observation. Barges arrive and depart with predictable regularity, yet the flow of goods and patrons is never entirely certain. A late shipment, a miscounted crate, or a sudden inspection by customs officials can disrupt schedules. Families develop intricate strategies to mitigate these uncertainties. Children are taught to carry messages quickly, alerting households to changes in arrival or departure times. Women track which traders are reliable and which are prone to deception, adjusting their efforts accordingly. Observation becomes as critical as physical strength. The ability to anticipate problems allows survival in an environment where unpredictability is constant. Labor itself is physically demanding. Crates are heavy, ropes fray, and planks are slick with morning dew or rain. Injuries are common, yet treatment is rudimentary. Families rely on herbal remedies, basic poultices, and communal knowledge passed down through generations. A twisted ankle, a cut hand, or a persistent cough is a minor crisis, demanding careful attention lest it impede the day's work. The endurance cultivated through repetition becomes an essential skill, as each day tests both strength and patience. Social networks are critical to survival. Families often operate within informal communities, sharing information, tools, and labor. One household may alert another to a change in dock schedules, offer assistance during a heavy shipment, or share food when provisions run low. Alliances are fluid yet necessary, fostering resilience in an environment where dependence on one another is not optional but essential. At the same time, rivalries and competition for work persist. Some families vie for the most lucrative contracts or preferred positions on the docks, requiring both tact and discretion in interactions. Children learn early the subtleties of negotiation and hierarchy. Even small actions, helping the right trader, carrying a message promptly, or observing patterns of behavior, affect their family's standing and survival. Education is informal, often practical. Literacy in measuring, recording cargo, and understanding weights, observation of social cues, and learning the rhythms of labor and commerce. These skills are cultivated not in classrooms but in constant engagement with the environment, embedding resilience and adaptability from an early age. Meals are modest, often rice-based, supplemented with vegetables or small portions of fish or meat. Preparation is a continuous process. As men labor on the docks, women cook, serve, and clean, ensuring sustenance for labor-intensive days. Food scarcity is common, and improvisation is a survival skill. Families make use of every available resource. Leftover vegetables may be turned into soup, dried fish preserved for days, and grains stretched to feed multiple mouths. The ability to manage provisions efficiently determines not just health, but endurance and capacity for work. Weather is both an ally and an adversary. Clear mornings allow smooth loading and unloading. Sudden storms create chaos, damage goods, and threaten life. Flooding from the Huangpu River is a constant concern, particularly for low-lying dwellings. Houses built on stilts mitigate some risk, yet water still seeps through floors, dampening bedding and supplies. Survival requires vigilance and preparation. Sandbags, quick relocation of goods, and flexible schedules become standard practices. Life on the docks is a negotiation with natural forces as much as human labor. By mid-afternoon, exhaustion is apparent. Muscles ache, hands blister, and sweat-soaked clothing clings to the body. Yet families continue, guided by routine, necessity, and the understanding that each day contributes incrementally to survival. Observation of patterns, how cargo moves, how traders behave, and how labor can be optimized remains central. Even as fatigue accumulates, attention must remain sharp. A misstep can have cascading consequences. The day, though repetitive, is an ongoing test of endurance, strategy, and quiet resilience. And as the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, another thought emerges. For all the skill, observation, and careful preparation, life on the docks is unpredictable. A sudden storm, a mismanaged shipment, or the shifting dynamics of trade could undo days of labor. How do families maintain equilibrium and protect their fragile livelihoods in a city where the flow of commerce is both lifeline and threat? As mid-morning transitions to midday, the docks of Shanghai transform from a busy thoroughfare into a carefully orchestrated arena of labor, observation, and negotiation. Every crate lifted, rope tied, and message delivered carries consequences. For families living along the wharves, the day is a blend of predictable routine and constant vigilance. What appears to be monotonous work is actually a complex system of interdependent survival strategies, social observation, and adaptive planning. Women continue to balance domestic management with labor, seamlessly moving between household duties and physical work on the docks. They carry baskets of supplies, tend to younger children, and assist in moving goods when the need arises. Their labor is physically demanding, yet equally taxing is the mental acuity required to track social hierarchies, patron expectations, and potential threats. A woman may need to remember which traders are reliable, which shipments are urgent, and which neighbors require assistance, all while maintaining composure under fatigue. Observation and memory are as vital as endurance. The social networks embedded in dockside life are intricate. Families rely on alliances to maintain safety, efficiency, and competitive advantage. A household may alert neighbors to a delayed shipment, share tools, or assist in the repair of boats and cargo nets. At the same time, competition is subtle but persistent. Families vie for more lucrative work, coveted dock spaces, or priority access to traders' attention. Success requires tact, discretion, and an ability to read human behavior accurately. Even minor errors, a miscommunicated message, overlooked task, or misjudged gesture can have cascading effects, influencing reputation, income, and access to resources. Children are central participants in this system. Beyond labor, they learn observational skills, negotiation, and basic commerce. A child may track the schedules of incoming ships, relay messages, or assist in small transactions. These activities are both educational and practical, preparing the next generation for survival in a world where strength, attention to detail, and social awareness are all crucial. The lessons learned through repeated engagement with the environment, patterns of behavior, physical endurance, and negotiation form the foundation of resilience. Weather and environmental hazards are persistent challenges. The Huangpu River, while vital for trade and daily life, poses constant risk. Flooding, strong currents, and sudden storms require swift response. Families must adapt quickly, relocating goods, reinforcing homes, and protecting children. Even minor miscalculations, a poorly secured crate, a delayed warning to a neighbor can result in significant losses. Adaptation and preparedness are central to survival, with strategies honed over years of observation and trial and error. Economic uncertainty shapes daily decision-making. Income depends on variable factors, arrival times of shipments, fluctuating trade demand, and the reliability of traders. A family's success hinges on accurately predicting the behavior of merchants, anticipating logistical bottlenecks, and maximizing labor efficiency. Decisions about where to allocate physical and mental energy, whether to assist in loading, manage household tasks, or negotiate with traders, are made continuously, reflecting both immediate necessity and long-term strategy. Observation of social cues extends beyond human interactions to the environment itself. Patterns in the river's tides, cloud formations signaling storms, and the movement of ships and barges all inform daily routines. Families learn to read subtle signals. A slight change in watercolor may indicate rising currents. The timing of morning fog may influence shipment schedules. Traders' gestures often reveal urgency or patience. The interplay between environmental awareness and human observation is constant, creating a delicate balance between adaptation, anticipation, and action. Rivalries among families remain understated yet significant. Competition for access to dock space, traders' attention, and physical resources can manifest in minor conflicts, miscommunication, or subtle obstruction. Alliances, however, mitigate these tensions. Families who share labor, exchange intelligence, and coordinate schedules gain resilience and efficiency. In this environment, cooperation and competition coexist, each shaping the social structure of the dockside community and influencing long-term survival. Physical endurance continues to test resilience. Repeated lifting, hauling, and manual labor strain muscles, hands, and joints. Women and men alike rely on small techniques, strategic resting, adjusting postures, and sharing labor to mitigate fatigue. Even with these strategies, exhaustion accumulates. Yet the repetitive nature of labor also builds skill, efficiency, and the capacity to anticipate challenges, providing a subtle rhythm to life that blends physical exertion with learned competence. Mealtimes are brief but essential. Food is simple: rice, preserved vegetables, and occasional fish, yet it sustains long hours of labor. Preparation involves careful planning, ingredients rationed for maximum effect, meals cooked quickly over charcoal stoves, and shared equitably among household members. Improvisation is a constant requirement. Scarcity teaches resourcefulness, while careful planning ensures endurance over long, demanding days. These routines, mundane as they appear, are central to survival and stability. By late afternoon, the day's labor begins to show its toll. Hands are blistered, clothing damp with sweat, and fatigue weighs heavily on bodies and minds alike. Yet families continue, guided by a mixture of routine, necessity, and learned strategy. Observations accumulated over months or years inform responses to emerging challenges, anticipating a shipment's arrival, predicting a neighbor's need for assistance, or responding to shifting environmental conditions. Survival is iterative, cumulative, and dependent on constant engagement with both human and environmental factors. Even amid mastery of routine, uncertainty remains. A sudden storm, a delayed shipment, or an unforeseen accident can disrupt carefully calibrated plans. Families' endurance, observation, and social networks provide a buffer, but survival is never guaranteed. The question lingers: how can these dockside communities maintain stability and security in a world where natural forces, economic pressures, and human unpredictability intersect in ways that are often uncontrollable? As the sun dips below the horizon, the docks of Shanghai take on a muted, contemplative atmosphere. Lanterns flicker along the wooden planks, casting pools of light on crates, ropes, and water-stained houses. The day's labor, intense and unrelenting, begins to give way to quiet reflection. The families who live along the wharves, weary yet vigilant, settle into evening routines that are as much about recovery as preparation for the next day. Evening brings a subtle shift in the social dynamics of the dockside community. Traders and laborers depart, leaving behind a quieter, more intimate environment. Women prepare meals with whatever remains from the day's provisions: a handful of rice, preserved vegetables, or dried fish, supplemented by foraged herbs. Children wash, dress, and rest, often learning through observation the routines they will eventually replicate. The rhythm of the day slows, but awareness never fully disappears. Even in rest, the mind catalogues events, noting successes, near misses, and patterns that may inform tomorrow's work. The social networks cultivated during the day persist into the evening. Neighbors share information about incoming shipments, weather conditions, or disputes with traders. Small acts of support, a shared tool, an extra portion of food, or a quiet warning reinforce communal resilience. These gestures are rarely formalized, yet they form a lattice of mutual dependence that sustains families through unpredictable circumstances. At the same time, subtle rivalries linger. Competition for future contracts or preferred dock positions is quietly acknowledged, reminding everyone that cooperation exists alongside competition in a delicate balance. The Huangpu River, calm under the setting sun, reflects both opportunity and threat. Its tides, once a driver of daily labor, now become a visual measure of change and risk. Families assess water levels, monitor weather patterns, and consider how these environmental factors might affect tomorrow's work. This vigilance is ingrained, even in periods of apparent stillness. Awareness of the natural world shapes behavior, strategy, and survival. The river teaches lessons in patience, observation, and anticipation that are as vital as physical labor or social acumen. Physical fatigue is ever present. Blistered hands, aching backs, and stiff joints speak to the cumulative toll of labor. Yet rest provides only temporary relief. Sleep is punctuated by environmental sounds. The lapping of water against pilings, creaking wood, and distant voices from the city. These sounds serve as reminders of the constant interplay between effort and uncertainty, persistence and fragility. The physical demands of the day are inseparable from the cognitive work of observation, calculation, and social navigation. Survival requires both strength and strategy, endurance and insight. Economic uncertainty casts a quiet shadow over the evening. Successes in labor or negotiation do not guarantee tomorrow's stability. Shipments may be delayed, contracts renegotiated, or patrons fail to arrive. Families rely on contingency strategies developed over time, stockpiling provisions, sharing labor, and maintaining flexibility in daily routines. These practices are not merely practical. They are a manifestation of learned resilience, a survival mechanism honed through repeated exposure to risk and unpredictability. Children, observing the evening rituals of adults, internalize lessons of endurance, social intelligence, and environmental awareness. Tasks are distributed not arbitrarily but according to observation, skill, and trust. By participating in routine chores and informal labor, they learn the subtle interplay of cooperation, competition, and anticipation. The education provided by the dockside environment is practical, continuous, and immersive, forming a foundation of competence and adaptability that is essential for long-term survival. As darkness deepens, families take stock of the day. Small victories, a timely warning to a neighbor, successful negotiation with a trader, or efficient completion of labor are noted and quietly celebrated. Near misses and mistakes are remembered as lessons, informing adjustments in routine, behavior, and strategy. In this reflection, the integration of observation, endurance, and social intelligence becomes apparent. Life on the docks is as much about learning from repetition as it is about immediate labor. The quiet of night emphasizes the fragility of the balance maintained during the day. Natural forces, economic pressures, and social dynamics intersect unpredictably, reminding families that control is always partial. Survival depends on vigilance, adaptability, and the ability to interpret both human and environmental signals. The night offers both respite and reflection, a pause in the continuous cycle of observation, labor, and negotiation that defines dockside life. And yet, even in the darkness, one question lingers. How long can families sustain their delicate equilibrium, balancing physical endurance, social networks, and environmental awareness in a city where commerce, nature, and human unpredictability constantly intersect? The answer is never guaranteed, but the daily practice of resilience, strategy, and observation ensures that survival, at least for the moment, remains possible. As the city sleeps, the docks rest lightly beneath the moonlight. Wooden planks creak under the occasional shift of cargo, lanterns cast faint glows on quiet waters, and families drift into slumber, carrying with them the lessons of the day. Endurance, observation, and subtle intelligence are the true measures of survival. Here, an ongoing practice that defines life in a world at once routine and unpredictable, fragile and enduring. The streets of Shanghai in the 1890 seconds are a maze of movement. Wooden rickshaws clatter over cobblestones, bicycles weave through crowds, and pedestrians navigate narrow alleyways lined with shops and residences. Among this flux, rickshaw pullers form a vital yet vulnerable part of the urban ecosystem. Their labor, grueling and constant, carries people, goods, and sometimes messages across the sprawling city. For women connected to this world, wives, sisters, or partners, the streets represent both opportunity and danger, a site where survival requires resourcefulness, endurance, and acute observation. Morning begins before sunrise. Rickshaw pullers stretch, oil wheels, and check the strength of harnesses, preparing for a day that will test both body and spirit. Women rise simultaneously, preparing meals of rice, soy, and preserved vegetables, ensuring their men are fueled for hours of exhausting labor. Children are mobilized as well, running errands, cleaning tools, or helping manage household chores. Every small action contributes to the family's overall capacity to endure long hours of physical and economic strain. The work of rickshaw pulling is physically punishing. Pullers often traverse several miles over uneven, crowded streets, exposed to rain, heat, or pollution from the river and coal fires. Injuries, blisters, pulled muscles, and occasional accidents are common, yet remedies are rudimentary. Families rely on herbal treatments, poultices, and rest when possible. Women's labor complements this, caring for the injured, managing meals, and performing additional work to supplement income. Survival is collective, interwoven across household members who each play a role in sustaining the fragile equilibrium. Economic uncertainty is a constant presence. Rickshaw fares vary depending on clientele, weather, and competition. Some men work steadily, while others experience intermittent income, forcing families to improvise. Women engage in small-scale trade, laundry, or selling food to supplement the family's earnings. Skill in negotiation and timing is essential. Knowing which streets yield more fares at specific times, which clients can be persuaded for extra coins, and how to manage limited resources without arousing conflict. Economic survival is therefore as much about intelligence and strategy as it is about physical endurance. Observation and social intelligence are indispensable. Women watch not only the streets, but the behavior of clients, competitors, and officials. A client's gestures, tone of voice, or hesitation may reveal intentions or urgency. A rival puller's positioning might indicate territorial disputes. Knowledge of local customs, rules, and human behavior allows women and their families to anticipate challenges, allocate effort efficiently, and avoid unnecessary conflict. The city itself becomes both classroom and laboratory, teaching lessons of survival, negotiation, and adaptation. Hierarchy within the rickshaw community is subtle yet pervasive. Experienced pullers command respect and often dominate the best routes or clients. Younger or less experienced men navigate the periphery, learning through observation and cautious engagement. Women similarly learn the social hierarchies that govern interactions, understanding which alliances to cultivate, which rivalries to avoid, and how best to position themselves and their families within these networks. Influence and survival are rarely determined solely by strength. perception, timing, and strategic action are equally important. The rhythm of daily life is punctuated by opportunity and risk. Pullers may encounter wealthy merchants, officials, or visiting foreigners, each interaction carrying potential advantage or danger. Women's roles are multifaceted, preparing meals, managing household logistics, advising on strategy, or directly engaging in small-scale trade. Their understanding of the urban environment, human behavior, and timing becomes a form of power, a critical complement to the physical labor that defines their partner's work. Physical endurance intersects with strategy in subtle ways. Pullers must pace themselves, manage fatigue, and remain alert to hazards on the streets. Women, in turn, allocate energy, prepare meals efficiently, and manage children to reduce distractions and maintain household functionality. The interdependence between labor, preparation, and observation forms the core of daily survival, a continuous negotiation between effort, risk, and adaptability. Meals and provisions are modest yet functional. Rice, vegetables, and small portions of preserved fish provide energy for grueling work. Preparation requires foresight, efficiency, and resourcefulness. Leftover food is conserved carefully, shared equitably, and used to extend limited resources. The ability to manage scarcity without compromising endurance or health is a daily exercise in both planning and improvisation, a skill as vital as any physical or social technique. Evening signals a subtle shift. Streets quiet slightly, fares diminish, and the labor-intensive portion of the day concludes. Families reconvene, tending to injuries, discussing successes and challenges, and sharing observations from the day. Reflection becomes a practice of survival, noting which strategies worked, which alliances strengthened, and which dangers must be anticipated tomorrow. Knowledge gained through observation and experience accumulates, forming a mental map that guides future action and enhances resilience. Yet, uncertainty never fully disappears. Weather, illness, competition, and unpredictable events persist as threats. One misjudged client, sudden storm, or rival's maneuver can disrupt the careful balance maintained by the family. Survival is never guaranteed. It depends on vigilance, adaptability, and the ability to integrate observation, endurance, and strategic action into everyday life. As the city's lanterns flicker and the streets quiet, a lingering thought remains. How long can families sustain this fragile equilibrium, navigating physical labor, social hierarchies, and economic uncertainty in a city that is constantly shifting, demanding both endurance and intelligence? Even in a day that appears ordinary, the question of survival persists, reminding every family member that mastery is temporary and resilience must be continually practiced. Midday on the streets of Shanghai brings both intensity and rhythm to the lives of rickshaw pullers and the families connected to them. The sun beats down on cobblestones and wooden wheels, casting shadows that move in tandem with the relentless motion of commerce. Every decision, from which streets to patrol to how to engage clients, carries consequences. Survival is a careful interplay between physical endurance, social intelligence, and observation. The pullers themselves are visible, sweat glistening, muscles taut, voices raised in negotiation. But the unseen currents of hierarchy, reputation, and strategy often determine who prospers and who falters. Within the rickshaw community, experience translates into influence. Seasoned pullers occupy prime routes, anticipating the arrival of merchants, officials, and foreign visitors. Their knowledge of street rhythms, shortcuts, and client preferences allows them to maximize earnings while minimizing physical strain. Younger or less experienced men often shadow these veterans, observing posture, timing, and negotiation techniques. The streets themselves become classrooms, offering lessons in endurance, spatial awareness, and human behavior. Success is rarely immediate. It accumulates through repetition, observation, and subtle adaptation. Women, while often invisible to the public eye, play an indispensable role in sustaining these families. Beyond managing meals and children, they monitor the environment, advise on strategy, and sometimes engage directly in small-scale trade to supplement income. Their observations inform decisions that can prevent conflict, secure clients, or avoid costly mistakes. A quick warning about a congested street, a timely preparation of supplies, or guidance on negotiating fares can make the difference between a successful day and financial loss. Their influence is subtle, often hidden, but critical to the household's equilibrium. Social hierarchies within the rickshaw community are nuanced. Respect is earned, not only through physical strength or endurance, but also through reliability, timing, and perception of skill. A puller who consistently arrives early, maintains equipment, and demonstrates awareness of client preferences gains informal authority. Rivalries are commonplace, but rarely overt. Competition manifests in subtle gestures, positioning along favored streets, taking slightly faster routes, or anticipating client arrivals. Women, observing these dynamics, learn to navigate alliances and rivalries, understanding which families to cooperate with, which rivals to avoid, and how to negotiate their own influence within these networks. Observation extends beyond human interactions. Environmental cues, street patterns, and weather conditions shape decisions at every moment. The Huangpu River, nearby alleys, and open marketplaces all present opportunities and risks. Sudden rainfall or a burst of traffic may create delays, forcing adjustments in route or schedule. Competent pullers and their families interpret these cues with precision, integrating them into a continuous calculation of risk, effort, and potential reward. Survival is thus a combination of physical capability, social insight, and environmental literacy. Children learn these lessons early, often through indirect participation rather than formal instruction. Running errands, carrying messages, observing interactions between adults, and assisting in household and minor street work cultivate awareness, endurance, and adaptability. By the time they are old enough to pull their own rickshaws or manage minor trades, they have internalized a practical understanding of human behavior, spatial strategy, and economic negotiation. Survival, in this sense, is both inherited and taught, a continuous process of skill acquisition that begins in the household and extends into the streets. Economic pressures persist as a constant undercurrent. A client may refuse payment, a rival may encroach on a preferred route, or weather may reduce demand. Women and men alike respond with subtle strategies: negotiation, strategic placement, resource conservation, and alliance building. The family unit operates as a coordinated system. The puller exerts physical labor, while the household monitors external conditions, manages provisions, and provides intelligence. Efficiency, discretion, and foresight become as valuable as stamina or strength. Even minor successes or failures carry weight. Collecting a slightly higher fare, delivering a passenger smoothly, or anticipating congestion allows incremental advantage, reinforcing reputation and improving long-term survival prospects. Conversely, errors, a misjudged shortcut, a delayed meal, or poor coordination can accumulate, causing fatigue, social tension, or financial shortfall. Mastery is therefore continuous and never complete. It requires constant attention, observation, and adjustment. By late afternoon, exhaustion begins to set in. Pullers' muscles ache, hands blister, and clothing is soaked with sweat. Women and children, too, are weary from the day's labor and vigilance. Yet, reflection remains essential. Observing which strategies were effective, noting changes in social dynamics, and recording lessons learned informs future actions. Survival is iterative. Knowledge, gained today, guides choices tomorrow, shaping both immediate and long-term resilience. And yet, despite mastery and preparation, uncertainty is always present. A sudden storm, illness, or an unanticipated rival can disrupt even the most carefully maintained balance. Families rely on accumulated experience, social networks, and adaptive strategies to mitigate risk. But control is always partial. The underlying question lingers: How long can families maintain stability, safety, and survival in a city defined by relentless physical labor, fluctuating economic pressures, and unpredictable human behavior? As dusk settles over Shanghai, the bustling streets gradually transform into quieter avenues, illuminated by flickering lanterns and the soft glow from shop windows. The clatter of rickshaw wheels slows, passengers return home, and the day's labor gives way to reflection, repair, and preparation. For families tied to the rickshaw trade, nightfall marks both respite and a moment to evaluate the fragile equilibrium that sustained them through hours of grueling physical labor, negotiation, and observation. The men return, muscles sore, hands blistered, faces etched with fatigue. Their work is visible in its physical toll, yet the impact of their day extends far beyond the body. Women, attentive to subtle changes in mood, energy, and endurance, respond with care. Preparing meals, tending injuries, and managing household tasks. Children, observing and assisting, contribute to the collective rhythm, ensuring that the family unit remains functional even after the exhaustion of a long day. Survival is thus distributed across the household. Each member plays a role, and each action supports endurance, strategy, and future resilience. Evening conversations focus on strategy, assessment, and subtle negotiation. Which routes were profitable? Which clients were challenging or unreliable? Did rival pullers assert dominance in key areas? Families discuss these matters in hushed tones, weaving together observations from the day into an evolving understanding of opportunity, risk, and potential adaptation. Knowledge is cumulative, building a mental map of the city's streets, human behaviors, and economic currents. Experience is the foundation of resilience. Memory and insight become as critical as physical endurance in sustaining survival. The social fabric of the rickshaw community persists into the evening. Alliances, rivalries, and informal hierarchies are reinforced through subtle gestures, shared observations, and exchanges of information. A passing conversation with a neighbor may reveal which routes are now congested, which clients are arriving tomorrow, or where a rival is likely to compete for fares. These interactions, though often quiet, carry significant weight in maintaining the balance of influence, safety, and opportunity. Women and men alike participate in this social navigation, ensuring the household remains aligned with broader community dynamics. Meals, simple yet essential, are prepared and consumed with efficiency and care. Rice, vegetables, and preserved fish provide nourishment for the body, while conversation and reflection nourish the mind. Even in scarcity, families manage provisions carefully, ensuring that energy and resources are conserved for the next day's challenges. Improvisation is constant. Every leftover, every small portion, is assessed for utility. The act of feeding the household becomes a subtle exercise in resource management, endurance, and strategy. Environmental awareness remains central. Even as the streets quiet, the river, wind, and weather continue to influence thought. Families reflect on conditions that may affect tomorrow's work. Rainfall that could make cobblestones slippery, wind patterns that influence rickshaw stability, or seasonal shifts in passenger demand. Awareness of these factors is intertwined with observation of human behavior, creating a comprehensive system of knowledge and anticipation that informs daily decisions. Children's education in endurance and strategy continues in these moments. Through observation, participation, and reflection, they internalize lessons in negotiation, spatial awareness, and practical intelligence. Tasks as small as observing a client's mannerisms or helping to carry provisions contribute to a growing competence, preparing the next generation to navigate the same uncertain environment. Survival is thus both immediate and generational, transmitted through practice, attention, and lived experience. The night brings both quiet and reflection. Successes are acknowledged, failures analyzed, and lessons internalized. Families consolidate observations, noting the efficiency of labor, the effectiveness of strategies, and the dynamics of social hierarchies. Survival is iterative. Today's experience informs tomorrow's choices. reinforcing the ongoing need for vigilance, adaptation, and intelligence. Even rest is purposeful, a period to recover while maintaining mental awareness of challenges and opportunities to come. Yet, uncertainty remains omnipresent. Accidents, rival conflicts, client disputes, and sudden economic or environmental shifts could undo the carefully maintained balance. The city's rhythm is relentless, unpredictable, and indifferent to individual effort. The question persists: how long can families sustain survival and stability in a world defined by physical toil, social negotiation, and continuous observation? It is a question without a simple answer, one that underscores the fragility and resilience inherent in their daily lives. As the city sleeps under lantern light and moonlit streets, the families of rickshaw pullers rest with a quiet understanding. Survival is an ongoing practice, a careful integration of endurance, observation, strategy, and social intelligence. Each day is a cycle of labor, reflection, and preparation, a rhythm that demands both physical strength and mental acuity. The world of the rickshaw pullers is neither glamorous nor dramatic, yet it is a world of subtle mastery, quiet resilience, and the persistent pursuit of stability in a city that is constantly in motion.